Nobody cares about your little art projects, my brother said, throwing away my paintings during his party. So I showed him what people really cared about. His wife was very interested in the photos from his business trips. I'm Nora, 29 years old, female, and my hands were still sticky with varnish when Jake's music started rattling my ribs. Jake, my older brother, 34 years old, male, throws the kind of parties that make the walls breathe. Glass clinking, someone yelling for shots like it's a sport, a human tide of people who dress like they're auditioning for a commercial. He was in the center of it, of course, a son in a shirt too tight across his shoulders, laughing big enough to claim the whole room. That's his magic trick. He fills space until you think there's none left for you. He's always been that way. Growing up in Akron, we lived in a beige house with a crabgrass yard, and everything felt like it belonged to him first. He taught me to ride a bike and then shoved me down the hill to prove I could learn fast or eat pavement. He gave great gifts on Christmas and followed them with jokes so sharp they left little cuts. When I got into art school, he brought champagne and asked me if there were majors for people who hate money. It was always a performance, the cheerleader with a knife tucked behind his teeth. Jess, his wife, 31 years old, female, is the opposite, the kind of gentle that looks like restraint. She used to hang out in my studio back when it was a rented storage unit with space heaters humming like bees. She'd watch me paint and talk about how color can feel like noise, how her favorite sound is the click of a camera shutter. The first time Jake brought her around, he kissed her like an apology. I remember thinking, interesting choice of wordless confession for a first impression. Mom, Elaine, 58 years old, female, calls him our rocket, and me, our free spirit, like one of those labels you hot glue to a mason jar. Dad, Rick, 62 years old, male, keeps his head down and fixes whatever breaks. When they visit Jake's house, Mom pretends not to notice the tiny crack running through the wedding photo on the mantle, a hairline split across their smiles that's been there since spring. The frame sits crooked, as if it's bracing for another argument. My studio's under renovation right now, finally got enough commissions to justify it, so some of my canvases have been living in Jake's garage temporarily. He said it was fine. Family first, he texted with that thumbs-up emoji, the digital equivalent of a pat on the head. I stacked them neatly against the far wall, faces in, the oil still off-gassing, that chemical sweetness that always makes me think of clean slates. Tonight I came to drop off a small landscape Jess asked to borrow, just to brighten their hallway during the party, she said. Something soft, something clean. As I walked through the side gate, bass thumped in the boards like a trapped heartbeat. I rounded the corner and stopped. The garage door was open. One of my canvases lay face down in the driveway, a skid of dirt across the sky I'd mixed for hours to get right. Another leaned in the crook of a trash bin, edge torn where the staples held. Jake looked up from the bin with a red Solo cup and a grin that said this was for an audience. "Nora!" he boomed, louder than necessary. Several heads turned. "We're decluttering. Nobody cares about your little art projects." He said it like he was tossing a beer cap, like it was nothing. And then, in the same motion he uses when he sinks a shot in beer pong, he pitched another canvas into the garbage. The sound it made, a muted slap, felt obscene. My throat did this strange, tight thing. The painting wasn't perfect, none of them are, but it was mine. 4 weeks of sunrise light skimmed into shape. The brush I stole from myself for that sky now dragged with dirt and someone's footprint. Jess was there, 2 steps back, her mouth parted like she'd forgotten to finish a word. She reached out and touched my shoulder, small and quick. I didn't... "Jake, come on," she said. "The way you talk to a dog that's already torn the couch cushion." He laughed, actually laughed, and a couple of his friends did too because the tide goes with the moon. "Relax," he told me. "They're just, you know." He wiggled his fingers like he was shaking off water. "Hobby stuff." I picked up the fallen painting. The sky had a tire track down it. I pressed gently, as if I could unbruise color. My brain went grainy, the way it does when you get bad news and everything decides to pixelate. I wanted to scream or hit something or swallow my tongue. Instead, I measured my breathing and tasted varnish and beer and the copper of humiliation. Here's what I've learned about Jake. When you push back, he makes a scene. When you don't, he makes a bigger one. I set the canvas aside, righted the others inside the bin one by one, careful like I was lifting sleeping children. He smirked at someone over my head and said, "She'll make more." He clinked cups like punctuation. What he didn't notice, what he never notices, is the way Jess has started looking past him, like she's searching for a horizon line. Or that on his last business trip, his camera roll backed up to their shared tablet on the kitchen counter while he showered, and Jess asked me, hands shaking, "Hey, can you, should I be seeing this?" He wanted to show everyone what mattered tonight. Fine. I could do that too. I tucked the ruined sky under my arm and walked into his party, careful not to brush the crack in their wedding photo as I passed. The frame tilted a little more. It was almost straight. Almost. I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing his hand tossing my canvases into the trash like they were nothing. Hours of brushstrokes, layers of color, pieces of me, and everyone just laughed like I was the punchline. My brother Jake, 35 male, has always had this way of making me feel small, but this was different. This was annihilation. When I went back the next morning to at least try to salvage what was left, the bins were already at the curb, rain soaking through the paper and paint. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just garbage. It was a burial. I stood there in the drizzle, hands trembling, thinking about every time Jake called me a dreamer, every time he joked at family dinners that I was still unemployed with hobbies. He loved playing the successful businessman, the guy with the house, the car, the parties. But behind that, I'd started noticing things, little cracks he tried to plaster over, late-night calls he'd step outside to take, unexplained business trips that stretched into weekends. His wife, Emily, 32, female, used to ask me to keep her company when he was gone. Not in a weird way, she just seemed lonely. She'd sit at my kitchen table sipping tea, eyes tired. Once, after her third glass of wine, she blurted, "He's not who he pretends to be." Then quickly changed the subject. That stuck with me. So when Jake humiliated me at his party, something inside snapped. He wanted to show everyone how worthless I was? Fine. But I had something he didn't know I had. Photographs. Last summer, when he left his laptop at my place after we'd argued, curiosity got the better of me. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. What I found made my blood run cold. Folder after folder of photos. Jake with women in hotel rooms, selfies in airports where no conference had ever been mentioned, messages full of promises and sleazy captions. I copied everything onto a flash drive, ashamed of myself but too disturbed to delete it. I'd hidden it away, thinking I'd never use it. But that morning, standing in the rain staring at my ruined paintings, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw punches. I was going to show him what people really cared about. And I knew exactly who would care the most, Emily. So I texted her, casual, "Hey, I think you should see something." She replied within seconds, "Don't forget to subscribe." Emily came over that same afternoon. She looked nervous, like she'd already guessed what I had to show her but didn't want it confirmed. Her hands shook when I set my laptop on the table and clicked open the folder. The first photo was Jake with some brunette in a hotel bathroom mirror, his wedding ring still on. Another was him shirtless on a bed, the date stamp matching the weekend he'd told Emily he was in Chicago for a real estate seminar. Her face crumpled as the images flicked by. She didn't cry at first. She just went quiet, her mouth a thin, pale line. "He said he was working," she whispered finally, eyes locked on the screen. "He always says he's working." I didn't touch her, didn't say sorry, didn't soften it. This wasn't about comfort, it was about truth. She scrolled further, clicking through screenshots of texts I'd saved. Jake bragging about how easy it is to sneak around when your wife thinks you're the breadwinner. Emily let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. God, he made me feel crazy for even asking questions. Then she turned to me. "We can't just sit on this." I shook my head. "No, we won't." That night, she confronted him. I wasn't in the room, but I heard everything from the hallway. Jake stormed in, still smelling of whiskey from his party hangover, and Emily held her phone up with the photos I'd given her. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, voice shaking but loud. He exploded instantly. You went through my stuff? You don't trust me? His voice was so loud, the neighbor's dog started barking. You lied to me for years, she screamed back. All those trips, all those excuses. Jake snatched the phone out of her hand and hurled it against the wall. It shattered on impact. You're pathetic, he spat. Listening to Nora, of all people. She's jealous, bitter, an embarrassment with her paint garbage. That word again, garbage. Something in me clenched. Emily didn't back down. She grabbed one of the printed screenshots I'd given her and shoved it against his chest. That's not Nora's brushstrokes, Jake. That's your dick in a hotel room. He froze, his face twisted red, veins bulging at his temple. Then he flipped the coffee table, sending mugs and papers crashing across the floor. Emily screamed. He actually grabbed her wrist like he was about to drag her out, but I stepped in. Let her go. He spun toward me, eyes wild. This is your fault. You think you're the hero? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. For a second, I thought he was going to swing. Instead, he shoved me hard enough that I slammed into the wall, my shoulder exploding with pain. Then he stormed upstairs, muttering curses loud enough for the whole block. Emily stood in the wreckage, shaking, clutching her wrist. He's going to bury me, she whispered. I picked up the shattered frame of their wedding photo from the floor. The glass was in jagged pieces, the picture split clean across Jake's smile. No, I said, voice low. He just buried himself. The next morning, my phone lit up like a fire alarm. Mom. What did you do to your brother? Dad. Jake says you're spreading lies. Fix this now before you destroy the family. He'd moved fast. Before Emily even packed a bag, he was already rewriting the story, painting me as the jealous, bitter sister who faked photos because I couldn't stand his success. He even dragged my art into it, texting relatives that I'd always lived in some fantasy world, and now I was trying to ruin his marriage with one. The nerve. The man caught red-handed with half a dozen women was calling me a liar. By noon, Jake showed up at my studio, pounding on the door so hard the canvases rattled. When I didn't answer, he screamed through the wood, "You want to destroy me? I'll take you down first." The neighbors came outside. He didn't care. He shouted about me being crazy, about Emily being hysterical. He even dragged Mom into it, FaceTiming her right there so she could hear him say I was having some kind of breakdown. I recorded the whole thing on my phone, every threat, every insult, every time he called me unstable. That night, Emily called me whispering from a motel. He locked me out of the house, changed the garage code, said if I came back he'd burn my stuff. Her voice was wrecked. He's telling everyone I cheated on him, Nora. He's saying I'm the one who's been lying. Classic Jake, when cornered, set fire to the whole house and pointed at someone else holding a match. I told her to stay put. You don't have to fight him alone, I said. And I meant it. Because by then, I knew exactly how to hit him where it would hurt the most. Not just exposing him, but doing it in a way no one could deny. The photos, the texts, his threats, his screaming, piece by piece, I had the makings of something he couldn't spin. The only question was when to drop it. And then fate handed me the perfect stage. Jake's company fundraiser. He was hosting it the following weekend. Cocktail dresses, local business owners, investors, even half our family invited. He was planning to play Mr. Perfect Provider, shaking hands, making speeches about integrity. Emily looked at me through the phone, eyes hollow but burning. If we do this, she said, there's no going back. I nodded. Good. Because he'd made a public show of humiliating me with my art. Now I'd make a public show of who he really was. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. I didn't expect this to blow up. I honestly thought maybe a handful of people would read my post and move on, but my inbox is flooded. Some of y'all came in swinging for Jake harder than I ever could. A few of you even said, don't waste time, just torch him publicly. Trust me, I hear you. Couple things I want to clear up since a lot of comments and DMs are asking. Yes, Emily and I are on the same page now. She's not mad at me for showing her the photos. If anything, she told me she wishes I'd done it sooner. She's staying at a motel for now because Jake literally locked her out of the house. He's claiming she ran off to be dramatic. Classic. Some people are asking why I had those photos in the first place. Long story short, he left his laptop at my place months ago. I shouldn't have looked, I know. But something about how defensive he was with his business trips didn't sit right with me. When I saw what was on it, I copied them. Not because I had a plan then, just because I had this sinking gut feeling I'd need proof one day. Turns out, I was right. And for the people saying, just walk away, cut him off. You don't know Jake. He doesn't let people walk away clean. If you don't play by his rules, he'll smear you, scream you into submission, or drag the whole family into his mess until you're the villain. Which is exactly what he's trying to do to me now. One comment really stuck with me. If he humiliated you in public, then the only way to balance it is to humiliate him in public. That's been echoing in my head all day. Because here's the thing. He has a big company fundraiser coming up. Black tie, donors, investors, family. He's planning to stand on a stage and talk about integrity while Emily's sleeping in a motel because he threw her out. So yeah, you could say the timing is perfect. Some of y'all joked about bringing popcorn. Don't bother. When this goes down, it's going to make his little party stunt look like kindergarten drama. I don't want to spoil exactly how yet, but let's just say the paintings weren't the only things I had stored away. Stay tuned. The fundraiser was held at a swanky downtown hotel ballroom, the kind with chandeliers that look like exploding glass and waiters gliding around with trays of champagne. Jake lived for this crap, standing tall in a tailored suit, flashing his salesman smile, acting like he owned the city. Mom and Dad were already there, orbiting him like planets. Mom fussed with his tie. Dad bragged to some poor investor about how Jake was the real deal in real estate. I saw them glance at me from across the room, their expressions tightening like they smelled something sour. They knew Jake had spun his story. To them, I was the unstable sister again. Emily slipped in quietly, hair tied back, wearing a plain black dress. She looked like a shadow compared to Jake's spotlight, but when our eyes met, I saw steel. She had her phone clutched in her hand, our little weapon loaded and ready. When Jake took the stage, the room hushed. He launched into his speech about community trust and building a future. I swear, the man could have been selling holy water the way people nodded. He was in his element. And then the projector behind him flickered. Not slides. Not graphs. Photos. The first one, Jake in a hotel bed with some woman half his age, time-stamped. Gasps rippled across the crowd. He froze. His smile faltered. Technical issue, he muttered, turning to the screen. But the next photo appeared. Jake in a bar, arms wrapped around another woman, clearly not his wife. Then the texts, blown up larger than life. She buys it every time. Just say business trip. The room went dead silent. Then whispers. Chairs scraping. Phones snapping photos. Emily stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. These are not technical issues. This is my husband. This is who he really is. Jake spun on her, face red, spitting words into the microphone. She's lying. She's hysterical. This is all Nora. She's jealous. She faked all of this. That's when I stepped into the aisle. I held up my phone, playing the recording from when he pounded on my studio door, his voice screaming, "You want to destroy me? I'll take you down first." The audio echoed through the ballroom speakers. Everyone heard it. Everyone saw him for exactly what he was, desperate, cornered, unstable. He snapped. He actually kicked over the podium, sending the mic screeching. "You think you can ruin me?" he shouted, pointing at me, veins bulging. "You're nothing, nothing." Security moved in as guests scrambled back. Investors whispered to each other, disgusted, some already leaving. Emily stood tall, chin lifted, tears streaking but unflinching. Jake tried to lunge toward me, but two guards grabbed him by the arms. He thrashed, screaming, until they dragged him out through the side doors like a rabid animal. His voice faded into muffled curses down the hall. The ballroom was silent except for heavy breathing and clinking glasses knocked over. And then, applause. Not loud, not joyous, but scattered, sharp, like people clapping because a mask had finally dropped. Emily turned to me. "It's done." But I knew Jake. This wasn't the end. This was just the first crack before the collapse. The next 48 hours were chaos. Jake's company issued a statement distancing themselves, reviewing leadership. Translation: he was radioactive. Investors pulled out. His business partner, his golden boy best friend Ryan, quit publicly on LinkedIn, calling Jake's behavior untenable. Screenshots of the projector photos had already made their way onto local gossip sites. Jake wasn't just humiliated, he was trending. Mom called me 6 times in one night, each voicemail angrier than the last. "Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" she hissed. Dad texted me, "You're sick, you need help. Jake was everything to us." Not once did either of them mention Emily. Emily, meanwhile, filed for separation the next morning. She stayed at my place, pale but steady, like a woman rebuilding herself brick by brick. When the papers were served, Jake went ballistic. He showed up at 2 a.m., slamming on my apartment door so hard I thought the frame would splinter. I didn't open it, but I heard every word. "You think you've won? You think this is over?" His voice cracked, breaking between sobs and fury. "You ruined me. I'll make sure you regret this. I'll burn your whole world down." He punched the door until his knuckles bled. My downstairs neighbor shouted, threatening to call the cops. Jake staggered back, howling, "She's mine!" before peeling off in his car, tires screeching. The next morning, my car tires were slashed. Every single one. Red paint sprayed across the driver's side. "Bitch." Emily's face went white when she saw it. "He's unraveling." It got worse. That afternoon, Mom and Dad actually showed up at my studio, pounding on the glass like protesters. Mom screamed that I'd poisoned Emily, that I was tearing the family apart. Dad tried to push inside, and when I blocked him, he snarled, "If you loved your brother, you'd never have exposed him like this." I laughed in his face, sharp, humorless. "If you loved your son, you'd stop pretending he wasn't a monster." They left spitting threats about cutting me off forever, as if I hadn't already been cut off years ago. But Jake wasn't done. That night, he blew up Emily's phone with calls, voicemails alternating between sobbing apologies and screaming rants. At one point, he sent a picture of her wedding dress slashed to ribbons, dumped on the driveway. Emily broke then. She collapsed in my arms, shaking so hard I thought she might crack apart. "He's not going to stop, Nora. He's going to keep going until one of us is destroyed." I pulled her close, fury hot in my chest. "Then let's make sure it's him." Because at that point, it wasn't about humiliation anymore. It was about survival. Update 2. I don't even know where to start. The last few days have been hell and fireworks at the same time. First off, yes, the fundraiser fallout went nuclear. Someone uploaded the projector video to TikTok, and it's already hit 500,000 views. Jake's face is everywhere, caught mid-scream while security dragged him out. He's become a meme. People are captioning it with stuff like, "When you get caught cheating and your PowerPoint presentation turns into a crime scene." I shouldn't laugh, but honestly, it's the only thing keeping me sane right now. Second, Jake is unraveling fast. He's been calling, showing up at my place, vandalizing my car. A lot of you warned me he'd escalate. Well, you were right. He slashed my tires, spray-painted my car, smashed Emily's wedding dress to pieces and left it on her driveway like some kind of twisted love letter. And my parents? Don't get me started. Mom's been leaving voicemails saying I owe Jake an apology for ruining his career. Dad actually tried to force his way into my studio to scream at me about family loyalty. Imagine protecting the cheater who humiliated his wife and trashed his sister's art, all while pretending I'm the one tearing the family apart. Unreal. A lot of you told me, get cops involved, get a restraining order. We're already on it. Emily filed for separation, and her lawyer's pushing to get a protective order. But here's the thing, Jake thrives on control. Legal papers won't break that. He's still calling at 2 a.m., alternating between sobbing apologies and threats like, "You'll regret this. I'll burn your world down." I've never heard him like this. He's not the cocky older brother anymore. He's unraveling, dangerous. And yet, this might sound insane, but part of me wants him to keep lashing out, because every broken tire, every voicemail, every slashed piece of fabric, it's evidence. It's him digging his own grave. Some of you said in the comments after Update 1, don't just knock him down, finish him. I think we're past the point of halfway. So yeah, next step isn't just about revenge anymore. It's about making sure he can't crawl back from this. Not with his reputation, not with Emily, not with me, not with anyone. He wanted to teach me that my art meant nothing? Fine. I'll show him what nothing really looks like. Stay tuned. It's about to get worse for him. Much worse. By the end of that week, Jake was a storm with nowhere to land. His company had cut him loose, investors gone, friends ghosting. The golden boy had turned radioactive overnight. But instead of disappearing quietly, he doubled down. Emily got a letter in the mail, handwritten, pages of it, begging her to take him back. He swore he'd change, swore the photos were old mistakes, swore she'd regret destroying their family. At the bottom, his handwriting slipped into rage. If you keep siding with Nora, you'll regret it. I'll drag you both down with me. She slid the letter across my table. He's not asking anymore. He's warning. That same night, his meltdown went public. He showed up drunk at our parents' house and started screaming in the front yard. Neighbors filmed the whole thing. Jake, shirt untucked, veins popping, yelling about how his whore wife and his jealous sister ruined his life. At one point, he actually tried to rip the mailbox out of the ground and hurled it across the lawn. The cops came. He resisted. They cuffed him. The video hit Facebook within hours. By morning, it was on local news. Former businessman arrested after domestic dispute. That's when Emily and I knew the timing was perfect. We hadn't shown everything at the fundraiser, just enough to tear the mask off. But now we dropped the rest. We compiled the photos, the texts, the late-night voicemails, the slashed dress, even the arrest video, and handed it straight to his board, his ex-clients, and, because Emily insisted, the divorce court. I'll never forget sitting next to her in that lawyer's office while she pressed send. Her hands were steady this time. She wasn't the trembling woman clutching broken glass anymore. She looked like someone finally reclaiming her life. And when the blast hit, it was surgical. Jake wasn't just a cheater now. He was violent, unstable, untrustworthy. His remaining contracts evaporated. His reputation in the city was gone. Even our parents couldn't deny it anymore. Mom called me, voice hoarse. "You've ruined your brother." I laughed, bitter and clean. "No, Mom, he ruined himself. I just gave people a front row seat." By the time Jake got out of holding, he had nothing left to cling to but his own rage. And I knew. One last explosion was coming. I was ready for it. It happened 2 weeks later. Jake showed up at the courthouse for the first divorce hearing. Swagger gone, suit wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. He looked smaller somehow, like someone had deflated him. Emily and I sat across the aisle, her lawyer stacked with folders of evidence. When the judge read out the protective order, barring him from contacting either of us, Jake snapped. He shot up from his chair, jabbing a finger at me. "This is your fault. You poisoned her. You ruined everything." His voice cracked on the word everything, echoing off the paneled walls. Bailiffs closed in as he tried to lunge forward, knocking his own chair over in the process. The judge banged her gavel. "Enough. Sit down, or you'll be removed." Jake laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "Remove me? You already erased me." He pounded his chest with a bloody-knuckled fist. "I was the only one this family cared about. Without me, you're nothing." Emily's lawyer calmly slid a packet onto the judge's desk, the latest evidence. Screenshots of his voicemails, photos of my vandalized car, the video of him screaming in our parents' yard before being cuffed. The judge didn't even look at Jake again. She just signed the order with a flick of her pen. Full protective order granted. Case adjourned. And just like that, it was over. The bailiffs escorted him out, still shouting, still spitting venom. But now no one was listening. Not the judge, not the lawyers, not even our parents, who sat behind him with their heads bowed, faces gray. For the first time in my life, Jake's voice didn't fill the room. It bounced off empty walls and died there. Afterward, Emily and I walked out together into the sunlight. She looked lighter, like she'd finally set down a weight she'd been carrying for years. I felt it too. Not triumph exactly, more like release. We didn't need to scream. We didn't need to fight. We'd shown the world who he really was, and the world had closed the door on him. When I got home that evening, I unwrapped one of the canvases Jake hadn't managed to destroy. The sky was streaked with bruised colors, blues and purples I'd spent days layering. There was still a faint tire mark across the corner, a scar I couldn't scrub out. I hung it up anyway, because it wasn't ruined. It was proof. Proof that even after everything he tried to bury, something survived. And every time I look at it now, I don't see Jake. I see the moment he finally lost.